What's up, fantasy owners and YouTube Nation? I am back. It's the Week 13 preview of the FFSR. This is for your team, your league, your game. This is your home. You know where it's at. I'm back after a 1-week break. I apologize again for not being able to do a Week 12 video last week. The schedule got crazy. Timing got really tight, and then I was pulled out of town at the last minute, so things changed quickly, so I didn't have time to record a video or do research. But I'm back at it this week. Hopefully we're in a position where I am at, making the push for the playoffs. Hopefully, for me this week, it's real simple. If my team wins, I win my division and I clinch a playoff berth. If I lose, which I don't want to think about that, it really boils down to next week. I couldn't have had a more perfect week last week, by the way. My team put up 155 points, the most I probably ever had on a team, if not really close to that. So my guys are going off at the right time. I got a great lineup of studs. Hopefully, you're in the same position. If not, maybe you're hoping to play spoiler for someone else, or just trying to find a way to sneak in. So wherever position you are in, we are going to try to help you win your week this week for Week 13. So looking at the matchups, really, there's not really a complete one-sided affair. Unlike there was last week, where Dallas was like a complete sweep of the Giants. The Giants gave them a really good game. There's really not one really that the numbers say is a complete sweep. The ones, though, that I think really I kind of lean on with the numbers, Detroit over Chicago is heavily favored toward Detroit because, again, it's that defense is very strong on both sides of the ball. First against the run, 10th against the pass. Seattle over San Francisco. I think that one, though, could go either way on Thursday night as well on these Thanksgiving games. Oh, and also, of course, Happy Thanksgiving for me, to all you out there as well. Can't forget about that. And if you're shopping on Thursday, Friday, be safe, be careful, don't do anything stupid. But and eat a lot of food. I mean, and enjoy the time with family, of course. But definitely eat a lot of food. We love food, don't we? Yes, we do. But in terms of Seattle, San Francisco, again, Seattle on defense really strong. 6th against the run, 3rd against the pass. That's why it heavily favors. And first in the league in rushing with Marshawn Lynch. So definitely heavily. I think you're going to see a lot of the running backs in that game because the passing Ds are both strong. St. Louis over Oakland. I mean, obviously the Rams are going to be heavily favored in that game. But again, the Raiders, though, coming off the upset win over Kansas City on Thursday night, looked really strong in that game. If Latavius Murray plays, which is still in the concussion protocol right now, but if he plays, that definitely helps the Raiders' cause as well. But the Rams, the Raiders for the bottom of the barrel in most categories in the league still the Raiders. So just keep that in mind. Buffalo, actually, the numbers heavily favor them over Cleveland. I think that game is going to be a lot closer than people think. Both teams top 10 against the pass, so it's not a great week for Brian Hoyer or Kyle Orton, if you want to use them in like a 2-quarterback league, maybe, but not great starting options, obviously. I think you're going to see a lot of the backs. Cleveland's running game defense is not great with, so you can probably use like a Fred Jackson or a Bryce Brown. Isaiah Crowell looks to be the back to own in Cleveland. He was huge for me last week, so I think we'll see a lot of those guys in that game. Cincinnati, obviously, heavily favored with the numbers over Tampa Bay. Although the passing situation actually is dead even. Cincinnati is 22nd in passing offense. Bucks are 22nd against the pass. Tampa's 18th in passing offense. Cincinnati, 18th against the pass. So it's dead even there, but on the ground, it heavily favors Cincinnati. So I think we'll see a lot of Jeremy Hill, a lot of Gio Bernard if he plays. So at this point, really, in Tampa, you're only probably starting Mike Evans and Vincent Jackson, the wide receiver combination. Surprisingly, in the Washington Colts game, the numbers actually favor Washington. The run offense is a spot better than the Colts' run defense. Washington's running defense is very strong. Of course, the Colts not a great running team. And the passing offense is better than the passing defense. Now, Colt McCoy is going to get the start. We know that now. RG3 has been benched, so Colt McCoy is going to get the start. We'll see what he can do on the road in Indy. But I don't think Washington's going to win that game, though. I think still the Colts are going to win. But you're probably going to downgrade the running backs a little bit. Trent Richardson, Boom Herron. You're going to downgrade those guys a little bit. But T.Y. Hilton, Andrew Luck still must starts there. Numbers, of course, no surprise, heavily favor the Giants over Jacksonville. You're starting your Giants this week, especially Odell Beckham. The sick catch he made against Dallas. If you haven't seen that yet, oh my gosh, go watch it. Go find it on YouTube, whatever video out you can find. It is one of the best ever that I've personally ever seen. I think that anyone's ever seen. Honestly, it blew up Twitter, blew up, I think the meme on Twitter is like break the internet. Well, I think that catch broke the internet a little bit. So, go check it out. It's definitely amazing. So you're starting your Giants this week. The only Jaguar you're probably only going to be starting is Denard Robinson at running back as an RB2. Numbers heavily favor Minnesota over Carolina. That's no surprise either. The running game in Minnesota is actually one of the top 20 units in the league. They're 13th. Passing defense is a top 10 unit, so Newton's probably going to have a tough day. Although you probably can't afford to sit Cam Newton or Kelvin Benjamin or Greg Olsen, but just temper their expectations a little bit. New England is actually, the numbers heavily favor New England over Green Bay, but I think that's a game that's going to be a shootout. I think you're going to start all your skilled players in that game. Denver numbers heavily favored against Kansas City. And surprisingly, in terms of the Monday Nighter, the numbers, in terms of the stats, have the Jets like 3 or 4 categories ahead of Miami. But come on, the Jets have given up on the season. We know that at this point. No Jet should be started or owned in your fantasy league at this point. They've just completely given up. They're a dumpster fire. No one on the Jets is worth playing at this point. So really, in terms of the games, I would say like you start everybody. I would say Philly Dallas is a no-brainer. You're starting everybody in that game. I think you can start a lot of guys in the Tennessee-Houston match. Actually, the numbers say that's pretty even. I like Zach Mettenberger over Ryan Fitzpatrick. Ryan Mallett is out for the year with a torn pectoral muscle, unfortunately for Houston. So I like Mettenberger a little bit better if you're pressed to use a quarterback, or if you're in a 2-quarterback league. I think Mettenberger is a better option there. Whoever starts at running back for Houston is a guaranteed must play, whether it's Arian Foster or Alfred Blue. And in terms of wide receivers, I like DeAndre Hopkins more than Andre Johnson, but that's a tough matchup. Tennessee is 11th against the pass, so it's going to be tough either way, but I like Hopkins more. And Bishop Sankey, you still can't use him at running back. San Diego-Baltimore is actually also a really even matchup, where I think you can use a lot of players in this game. I like Phillip Rivers a little more than Joe Flacco based on the matchup. The Chargers are strong against the pass, but Flacco has been red hot of late, so I think you could use both options if you're, again, pressed at quarterback or in a 2-quarterback league. I think Rivers and Flacco are both actually pretty serviceable. Love Justin Forsett. He had a great game against the Saints last week. Great. San Diego's middle of the pack against the run, so Justin Forsett's a good play as well. I think Antonio Gates, Keenan Allen are must-start guys. Really, I think the only thing you need to avoid is the Charger running backs. That situation's a mess. Ryan Matthews can't stay healthy, and Brandon Oliver and Donald Brown behind him aren't getting enough work to be relevant. I think you're starting all your skilled players in the Saints-Steelers game. That's a matchup where the defenses are both just terrible. So you can start, Drew Brees, Ben Roethlisberger, Mark Ingram, maybe Pierre Thomas as a flex, Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, maybe Martavius Bryant as a number 3, Kenny Stills, Jimmy Graham. Maybe you can get away starting Heath Miller as a tight end too. So anyone that usually normally play for a Saint or a Steeler, you're going to play in that matchup. Arizona, Atlanta, I would, again, surprisingly the numbers say it's pretty even. I think you can actually get away with starting both quarterbacks in that game. You can start either Matt Ryan or Drew Stanton. Again, the Falcons' the passing defense is ranked dead last in the league, 32nd. I like Drew Stanton as a maybe serviceable QB2 in that matchup. And, of course, you can start the wide receivers on both sides. Now, I just got a SportsCenter alert right before I started the show about Larry Fitzgerald. Bruce Arians said that he, was limited at practice. So he's looking better, though, but there's still a doubt whether he might play or not this week. So you want to monitor that if you're a Larry Fitzgerald owner. But otherwise, if he plays, I think he's definitely a starting option this week. Maybe even John Brown as a wide receiver 3. You can't trust Michael Floyd at this point. He's clearly fallen off the map as well. And I would avoid all running backs except for Andre Ellington. As long as Ellington plays, he's healthy. I think he's a good go. But you're not starting Steven Jackson against the Cardinals' third-ranked run defense. That's just not a good option for you. You're starting all your skill players in New England, Green Bay, guaranteed. That's going to be a fun shootout game. That's my Super Bowl preview, by the way, right there, is New England, Green Bay. That's what I'd want to see right now if the season ended today. Other than that, I think that's pretty much it. So we'll just go ahead and dive right in to the position-by-position breakdown. That's what the numbers say. But let's see what the projections say and how we kind of see the same things going forward. Quarterbacks this week. Top 5 options: Andrew Luck, Peyton Manning, Ben Roethlisberger, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers. Again, I don't think any of those are misprints. I think those guys, the only one maybe again is a little bit of a concern is Luck because of the fact that the matchup is so tough with Washington going up against the 8th-ranked pass defense. But come on, it's Andrew Luck. The Colts just came off a decent week against Jacksonville. Not a great week by any stretch, but you're not sitting Andrew Luck, not at this point in the season. Of course, Peyton is automatic every single week, even though it's a tough matchup against Kansas City with the number 1 pass defense. You're not sitting Peyton Manning. Again, Big Ben. Again, the Saints' pass D is terrible, 23rd. And again, Brady, Rodgers. Those are no-brainers. So I would say any of those 5, you're probably going to be good with. The only, the projections say obviously 30-plus point numbers, but the only, one that might, maybe the one that might not hit it based on the matchup is Luck or Manning, but I don't think, again, you can't afford to sit those guys. They're just too good. They're usually matchup-proof anyway. 6 through 10, Tony Romo, Matthew Stafford, Drew Brees, Ryan Tannehill, Eli Manning. So obviously I mentioned with Dallas-Philly, you're starting your skill players in that game. The Eagles' passing defense is atrocious, 30th in the league. Romo is clearly showing no ill effects from the back injury that he suffered a couple weeks ago. He's been amazing for me all year, hopefully for your team as well. You're starting Romo this week again. So out of that next 4, Stafford, Brees, Tannehill, Manning. Obviously I've already said Brees is a must start against Pittsburgh. Their pass defense isn't exactly strong either. Even though Brees is on the road, the Saints, they're losing either at home or the road, so really it doesn't matter, but they can still put up numbers on the offensive side, so it's still Drew Brees. So I like Romo the best of that bunch. I think Brees is second. Stafford is going to have a big day because the Bears' passing defense isn't exactly great either. They're 28th against the pass, so Stafford's, I think, going to have a big day. So Romo certainly is safe. Stafford certainly is very safe. Brees, I think, is safe enough even on the road. Now, 9 and 10 are interesting because Ryan Tannehill and Eli Manning, and the reason why they're so high is because they have great matchups. They're playing, of course, 2 teams that are really, really bad, the Jets and the Jaguars. But, again, if it were me, the safer pick, I would go with Eli Manning. If you had to choose between Eli Manning and Ryan Tannehill as kind of like a desperate, QB1, QB2 play, I would go with Eli Manning because, again, the Jaguars, it's still the Jaguars. Yes, their pass rush is getting better, as we saw last week, but it's still the Jaguars. They're still 27th in the league against the pass. Eli now has found an amazing, reliable weapon in Odell Beckham, even giving him praise for that sick catch. So if I had to choose between the 2, weighing the 2 on the scale here, not only because the matchup's better, but I think because of the fact that there's more opportunity for points to be scored, I would go with Eli Manning. Not saying anything bad about Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill has been very good for Miami this season. The Dolphins are playing really well, and they're playing in prime time against a Jets team that, in all likelihood, is mostly given up on the season, it looks like. So I wouldn't say that Ryan Tannehill's not a bad option, but if I were torn between the 2, if I was like, say, if I need a second quarterback and I'm, not satisfied with my current one, I'm tossing between Ryan Tannehill and Eli Manning, I'm going to lean Eli Manning. So just because I think that the matchup is just better overall. But, plus, again, the numbers favor Manning. Giants are 12th in passing offense. Dolphins are 23rd. So again, and not that Tannehill doesn't have weapons in Miami. He's got Mike Wallace, he's got Charles Clay, but Eli has, Beckham, Ruben Randall, Larry Donnell. He can use Jennings or Williams out of the backfield. I think there's more here with the Giants situation than Tannehill, so I would flip that around. I agree with Romo, Stafford, Breeze. I'd probably agree with that. Maybe Breeze one spot ahead of Stafford. You could kind of flip and reverse those. But I would put Eli Manning ahead of Ryan Tannehill just by one spot, in terms of if you're looking for a second quarterback with upside this week. 11 through 15, Jay Cutler, Andy Dalton, Mark Sanchez, Cam Newton, Russell Wilson. I'm not fond of Jay Cutler. I don't know how many times I've said it on here, but I'm not fond of Jay Cutler because, again, this matchup is just way too tough. Chicago has really floundered of late. I don't know why he's that high. He's projected for 20 points. That may be a little bit forgiving. The Lions' defense is just so strong. The Lions are 10th against the pass. I can only rate Cutler as a QB2. Now, you're probably starting his receivers. You probably can't afford to sit Alshon Jeffrey or Brandon Marshall, or that kind of thing. But Cutler, I'm really, really wary on him this week. I would not have him that high. I would put, actually, surprisingly, this might surprise you, and I know because I know I've railed him in the last few weeks, I would put Andy Dalton ahead of Jay Cutler. I would put Mark Sanchez ahead of Jay Cutler this week because I just don't like Cutler's matchup. And the Bears in tough matchups have tended to flounder, and especially on the road in Detroit. So I don't like the matchup. I don't think he's going to get to 20 points. Maybe 15 if he's lucky, but I don't think that the productivity is going to be there. I like Andy Dalton a lot more this week because he proved me wrong last week. He went into Houston and beat Houston. He's got A.J. Green now fully healthy. He's got his 1-2 punch of running backs back. I think that 1 week game against Cleveland was completely fluky, it looks like, at this point. So Andy Dalton proved me wrong, so hopefully now he'll prove me right by saying I think he's a solid QB 1-2 this week against a Tampa Bay defense that is still very, very bad. So I will say, now, if you're debating between Dalton and Sanchez, I don't know. That one really, to me, is a toss-up because, again, the Philly-Dallas game is going to be a shootout, and it's on Thursday, which is a benefit in your league. So if it were me, I would probably rank them Sanchez, Dalton, Cutler. I would say Sanchez barely above Dalton. I think they're on the kind of the same point line, but for me, I think I really, really like Sanchez. Obviously, it's the Philly offense. They're thriving. He's developed a rapport with Jordan Matthews at wide receiver, clearly. He's got the weapons there. I really like Mark Sanchez if you're needing, a number 2 quarterback. I think he's as solid as they come. Same with Dalton. I think you can go with either one, but I'm not sold on Jay Cutler as much as the experts are. And then below them is Cam Newton and Russell Wilson. And again, I'm not fond of either because of the tough matchup this week. But if you had to pick one, I would have to say you'd probably want to go with Cam Newton because of the fact that, it's just a tough matchup for Seattle going on the road to San Francisco. I think you're going to see a lot of Marshawn Lynch. Again, it's kind of been the backbone for Seattle this season. Marshawn Lynch has been the main guy. Russell Wilson hasn't had to throw the ball a lot. He doesn't have an elite wide receiver anymore. So I think the receivers, all the receivers in that Seattle San Francisco game are just going to be fully downgraded because there's no number 1 in Seattle. Michael Crabtree's the best option that the 49ers have, maybe Anquan Bolden, but Vernon Davis is not himself anymore. So I just think that if, it's again, that's kind of the lesser of two evils, but I would say if you had to pick between Newton and Russell Wilson, I would honestly go Cam Newton in that, just barely because Newton has more playmakers, I think, than Seattle does in the passing game. Then the next 5, 16 through 20, Zach Mettenberger, Joe Flacco, Kyle Orton, Matt Ryan, Alex Smith. I will say this about Zach Mettenberger. If you are in need of maybe a number 2, number 3 quarterback, if you're really desperate, I like Mettenberger. I actually like the job that he has done with Tennessee. I think clearly he's far and away above Charlie Whitehurst. If Jake Locker were healthy, then maybe Locker would still be the better play, but Mettenberger has come in and shown that he can handle this Tennessee offense. And the matchup is great for him. As I said, I like him better than Ryan Fitzpatrick because Houston is toward the bottom of the league in pass defense. They're 31st. That would be nice if Mettenberger had more weapons to work with. He's trying to get Kendall Wright involved. He's trying to get Justin Hunter involved. Occasionally he throws a deep ball to Nate Washington, and Delaney Walker's health status, and Bishop Sankey's non-running game. He doesn't. The problem is he doesn't have much to work with. Zach Mettenberger does not have much around him, to build with here. He doesn't have that much to work with. So that's the only risk you have if you want to play Zach Mettenberger. But again, if you're hurting at a number 2, number 3, I don't see him as a very bad option. As for the next 4, I think you can get away with using Flacco or Matt Ryan this week. I think, again, if you're looking for a number 2 quarterback, I think either one is a decent option. Now, San Diego is strong against the pass. They are 6th against the pass. But Baltimore has just been red hot of late. They just went in New Orleans and just decimated the Saints. Steve Smith Sr. had a huge game, and you still got Torrey Smith in there. So, I think Rivers and Flacco, as I mentioned, both serviceable options at quarterback for you this week. But I think certainly Flacco can be used as a QB2 if needed. I think Matt Ryan could be used as an upside QB2 because, again, Arizona is just so bad against the pass. They're 25th against the pass. Falcons tend to play better at home. Falcons realize they're leading the weak and terrible NFC South at 4-7. But so I think Atlanta's going to play with something to prove. So I think out of that group, I like Mettenberger, I like Flacco, I like Ryan if you need a QB2. Not as much sold on Kyle Orton or Alex Smith because, again, Alex Smith, yes, you're playing at home against Denver, but Denver is decent against the pass. And again, mostly he's a dink and dunk guy. Obviously, Denver's strong against the run. You're not saying Jamal Charles, obviously, but the fact that, I don't know. I'm not really fully sold on Alex Smith. Kyle Orton has a tough matchup with Cleveland as well. The Browns are 9th against the pass. It's going to be very, very tough. Again, maybe a desperate QB2 or 3. But out of that group of 5, I would probably rate them. I would probably say I'd go Flacco, Mettenberger, Ryan, and I'd probably go Orton Smith. That's how I would rate that group of 5. After that, then you look at the next 5, and again here you're kind of really getting into desperate territory. Next 5 are Brian Hoyer, Drew Stanton, Josh McCown, Teddy Bridgewater, Colin Kaepernick. Now Kaepernick, again, surprisingly very, very low this week, and really I can't say I blame the projections putting in this low because, again, Seattle against the pass, they're 3rd against the pass. It's going to be a very tough, I think, defensive-heavy matchup, low-scoring game, ugly game. But in terms of, for me, I think I give Kaepernick actually a slight edge over Russell Wilson because I think Kaepernick is more of a runner than Russell Wilson is. I don't see Russell Wilson usually run the ball all that much. If Seattle runs, it's usually with Marshawn Lynch. So I think Kaepernick is going to have to be able to use his legs more because of the tough matchup. Oh, they did fine him. Sports Center alert here. Nothing of fantasy relevance, but Dominic Raiola got fined $10,000 for the chop blocks on Zach Moore. And the day before, they said they weren't going to fine him. Interesting. But anyway, with Kaepernick, I like him a little more than Wilson. I'm not going to say he's a must-starting option. I don't think that's the case. But again, maybe a QB2 with upside, but I can't say he's a must-start. Now, I wouldn't put him below. I don't know. I don't know if I can put him below McCown. I certainly can put him below Bridgewater because Bridgewater has a great matchup with that Carolina pass defense, and he's starting to find a reliable wide receiver in Charles Johnson. So, and Hoyer's got a tough matchup too because Buffalo is 5th against the pass. So again, it's QB2 territory. I'm not. Actually, like I'm gonna say, out of that bunch, I actually like Stanton the most because again, Atlanta's 32nd against the pass. So if you're desperate, I like Stanton. Out of that bunch the most. I'll go Stanton, Hoyer. I'd say probably coin flip because Hoyer's got a little more weapons than Stanton does to work with. But I'll go Stanton, Hoyer, Bridgewater, McCown, Kaepernick. Maybe Stanton, Hoyer, Bridgewater, Kaepernick, McCown, just barely above him because McCown, doesn't have a whole lot of weapons there either. But maybe a couple with Evans and Jackson. But that's a tough matchup going to play in Cincinnati. So I don't know. So I'll say Stanton. Yeah, that's how I'll rate him. Stanton, Hoyer. What do I say? Stanton, Hoyer, Bridgewater, Kaepernick, McCown. If you're torn on who to choose between that group. Then the next group after that, again, at this point, you're really looking for desperate options. Blake Bortles. Now, Phillip Rivers only projected for 13 points against Baltimore. I'm just a little surprised at that because the Ravens' pass defense is their weakness. They are 29th in the league against the pass. I'm surprised that Phillip Rivers is that low on the projections chart. Maybe it's because of the fact that Baltimore's D has played stronger of late. I don't know why the projections aren't really sold on Phillip Rivers. So I would say Rivers is definitely a serviceable, QB2 at the least. I would say out of this group of 7, I think Phillip Rivers is the best of that group. I might even put Rivers ahead of Kaepernick. I'd certainly put him ahead of Bridgewater, McCown, Stan, maybe not Hoyer, but certainly I think Rivers is way too low on that list for my taste. I think Rivers is way too low on this list. Certainly he's ahead of Blake Bortles because you're not going to start him against the Giants, no way. But then after this guy, I don't think you can start any of the bottom 5. So you're not starting Derek Carr, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Colt McCoy, Sean Hill, or Geno Smith. If you're really really like a really deep league, like you play like 3-4 quarterbacks, then maybe you can get over starting Colt McCoy because the matchup is good. But other than that, I can't recommend any of those other guys as starting options for you. All right, moving on to the running backs. For the week. Top 5 on this list: DeMarco Murray, Jamal Charles, Le'Veon Bell, Matt Forte, and interestingly, number 5 is C.J. Anderson of Denver. And really, when you think about it now, C.J. Anderson is the only healthy running back that Denver has. I mean, Ronnie Hillman's out with the foot issue. Now Monty Ball's out with the groin issue, and Juwan Thompson is Invisible Man, and so really he's all they've got. So really, if you picked up C.J. Anderson, good for you because you have found a gem. And Kansas City against the run is 26th, so that's a great matchup for C.J. Anderson. So you're definitely starting him. Obviously, DeMarco Murray is a no-brainer. Jamal Charles is a no-brainer, even though the matchup's tough. Denver is second against the run. Jamal Charles is matchup proof. You're not sitting him. I already said about Le'Veon Bell and the great matchup that he has. The Saints are 23rd against the run. Again, I have to say the only one that I'm worried about in this group is Matt Forte. I don't understand why Matt Forte is so high, even in tough matchups, because, yes, I understand he's the only, Chicago running back that's, any good that they have, and I understand, but you're going to Detroit, you're taking on the top-ranked run defense in the NFL. Why are you rated the 4th highest running back of the week? I don't get that. That he would not be in the top 5 on my list. He would not be probably in the top 10 on my list this week because that's just asking way too much. Maybe Jamal Charles is even a little bit too high, but at least he finds a way to get his. I don't know if Matt Forte is going to get his against this tough Detroit defense. I've seen this Detroit tough defense play, and they don't give up much on the ground. So I would have C.J. Anderson ranked ahead of Matt Forte, to be quite honest with you, because the matchup's so much better. I would have Marshawn Lynch. Let's see. Who's below Matt Forte that I could put above him? I put C.J. Anderson above Matt Forte, no-brainer. I put Marshawn Lynch above Matt Forte, no-brainer. I would put Jeremy Hill. I would put Jeremy freaking Hill above Matt Forte. I would. Because Tampa Bay is 19th against the run. Not first, 19th. I would put Jeremy Hill ahead of Matt Forte. Andre Ellington. I put Andre Ellington ahead of Matt Forte. Because, again, it's Atlanta. What are they against the run? 24th, people. Numbers don't lie. Numbers. I mean, what are these people, so-called experts, doing, rating Matt Forte about, you know what? Matthew, we're going to bring up his name again because it's a guy I read every single week. Matthew Berry. I bet you. I'm pretty sure, in fact, I am 99.9% sure that Matt Forte is going to be on Matthew Berry's hate list this week. I bet you. Because the matchup is just too tough. He's not going to get 16 frickin' points. He's not. And you know what? If he does, I'm going to be on it. I'm going to be on Matt Forte all week. And if Matt Forte does reach 16 points or more, I'll bring out Mob Guy and I'll give him an apology. Okay? You heard it right here. I don't understand why these people have Matt Forte ranked so frickin' high. It's Detroit. It's Detroit. In Detroit, #1 run defense. I can't see him as a top 10 play this week. I can't. I would have C.J. Anderson, Marshawn Lynch, Jeremy Hill, Andre Ellington. For gosh sakes, who's next? Who's next after Ellington? Alfred Blue. Alfred Blue of Houston. I would put maybe him above Matt Forte because Tennessee is 32nd, dead last against the run. Not first. 32nd. Think, people. Look at numbers. Chicago has been winning ugly lately. Just downright ugly. They either win ugly or they lose ugly. Chicago is the ugly bear. I mean, what more do you want me to say? Who's after Alfred Blue? This is a fun game show. Dun-dun-dun-dun. It's time for Who Will Chris Rank Above Matt Forte This Week award. Dun-dun-dun-dun. This week it's C.J. Anderson, Marshawn Lynch, Jeremy Hill, Andre Ellington, Alfred Blue. Yes, even Alfred Blue. Now, maybe that's where it ends, because the next name on the list is Eddie Lacy. And Eddie Lacy has a tough matchup against New England. So I think that's where it ends. Now, obviously, you're going to start Eddie Lacy because you're starting your skill players in the New England Green Bay game. But over Matt Forte, I don't know. Justin Forsett! Justin Forsett! I would start Justin Forsett over Matt Forte. Because, again, the matchup's better. And he just carved up the Saints for buku yardage last week. So right now, if you're scoring at home or even if you're alone, it's Murray, Charles, Bell, Anderson, Lynch, then Hill, Ellington, Blue, then Forte at number 9, and then Eddie Lacy. Barely in the top 10. Barely above Eddie Lacy. Maybe Forsett leaps in there at 10 or 9. But, okay, no. Put Forte right at 10. No. Okay, let's revise that. Flip that around and reverse it. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, I know I'm talking to this mic, but here we go. No. Okay, Murray, Charles, Bell, Anderson, Lynch. There's your 5. Hill, Ellington, Blue, Forsett, and then Forte. There's my top 10. I cannot fathom why some people are putting Matt Forte that high. I don't understand it. I really don't understand it. I am Forte confused. I mean, I have no idea why he's that high. So then I would have Lacey at 11. So I think you can kind of gauge how I feel about the people in that list, because I think you can start all those guys above Matt Forte. Matt Forte to me is number 10. Not 4, 10. But Lacey, I don't, it's close between him and Lacey, but toss up. So after Forsett, the next 4 are LaShawn McCoy, Rashad Jennings, Denard Robinson, and Isaiah Crowell. Obviously, you're starting LaShawn McCoy. That's a no-brainer. And McCoy and Forte, again, is a toss-up, I think, too. Rashad Jennings. I would start him over Matt Forte, because, again, it's the Jaguars. 28th against the run. Better matchup. The names just keep starting to build. So maybe put Jennings at 9 and then or 10 and drop Forte down to 11. He's just going to keep falling down this list. Denard Robinson is a serviceable RB2 this week. The Giants are 31st against the run. He's the only Jaguar you're going to start. Now starting him against Forte, that I don't know. That might be a little bit too risky, but certainly in the conversation be below in that mix. So, and then Crowell against Buffalo, tough matchup. Bills are 8th against the run, but I have to use him in my league this week. I have no better option, so I've got to use him. He's clearly emerged as the top running back in Cleveland. So out of that bunch that I just mentioned, the 5 there, I would probably say Forsett. Actually, that's probably accurate. Forsett, McCoy. Maybe McCoy one spot above Forsett. It's kind of a coin flip between those two. And then Jennings, Robinson, and Crowell. I think that's pretty much okay. But Forte being that high, no. Next 5. Whoa, I really went down here. 16 through 20, according to the projectionists. I'm saying now in air quotes because clearly they are very wrong, I think, when it comes to Matt Forte. Mark Ingram, Alfred Morris, LeGarrette Blount, Trey Mason, Lamar Miller. LeGarrette Blount is an interesting name there because, of course, he has emerged now. He is now the New England running back of the week. It's time to once again spin the wheel and see what running back in New England is running back of the week. 1 week it could be Shane Vereen. 1 week it could be Brandon Bolden. 1 week it could be Jonas Gray. Then it's LeGarrette Blount. Heck, it might be James White this week for all we know. We don't know. But, Jonas Gray was the flavor of the week last week. But then he screwed up. He showed up late to a practice, and then Bill Belichick said, sit your butt on the bench, you're not playing. Oh, the joy of his own New England running back. So now what do we think about LeGarrette Blount? Well, who knows, really? I mean, that's the risk you take when owning a Patriots running back. It's just the risk you take. And we thought Jonas Gray would be the guy, but maybe he's not the guy. Now LeGarrette Blount's the guy. Vereen's still in the mix, and now Gray's in the mix, and Blount's in the mix. And for me, it just sounds like a situation to avoid. To me, I'm not high on him. I don't think, I think you're better off, starting a lot better options than a New England back. That's just my opinion. So I like Mark Ingram against Pittsburgh, obviously. I think he's a very safe play for you. Alfred Morris against the Colts. Colts aren't great against the run. They're 17th. So I would say Ingram and Morris definitely above LeGarrette Blount. Trey Mason of the Rams against Oakland. I think he's serviceable as an RB2. I think I would put him ahead of Blount. I would definitely put, I don't know about definitely, because Miller going up against the Jets. Yeah, the Jets' the run D is strong. The 4th against the run. But ahead of Blount, that's asking a lot. So I would probably go Ingram, Morris, Mason, Blount, Miller. Blount and Miller, kind of a coin flip. It's tough considering the uncertainty at running back in New England and a tough matchup for Miller. Nah, not so sure. Next five, kind of going into the deeper plays here. Joique Bell, Fred Jackson, Gio Bernard, Trent Richardson, Latavius Murray. Latavius Murray of Oakland is an interesting name here that I want to highlight because he now has emerged as the top back in Oakland. I mean, we had to sit through plotting Darren McFadden and nothing left with Maurice Jones-Drew, and now we've got Latavius Murray. Now, it was amazing what he did to Kansas City. On 4 carries, he rocked off 112 yards and a touchdown. He rocked off. Oh my gosh. He rocked off? How about ripped off? He rocked off. I don't even know what that means. I don't know what that means. Yeah, get your rocks off. I'll have one on the rocks, please. Yeah, I have no idea what that means. To get rocked off. Anyway, if anyone knows what rocked off means, please let me know. But bottom line, he did suffer a concussion, though, in that game, so he's going through concussion protocol and all that. If he plays, I think he's a very good option as an RB2 or a flex. The Rams' run D is nothing special. They're 20th against the run. So I think he's a strong play. Bell going up against the Bears. The Bears are 12th against the run. So that's a tough matchup for Joique. But again, I have to use him this week because I'm remembering much better options behind him. I like Fred Jackson against Cleveland, though. Out of this group, I'd probably say I like Fred Jackson and Gio Bernard the most. I would actually put Fred Jackson and Giovanni Bernard above Joique Bell. Because Gio, the Bucs are 19th against the run. Him and Hill form a great 1-2 combo. The Browns are 29th against the run, so I love Fred Jackson. You might even see a little bit of Bryce Brown sprinkled in there maybe, but I think as long as he's healthy, Jackson's the guy. So I would rate them out of that group. Again, these are pretty much RB2s, RB3s, or flexes. I would put Jackson the best of that bunch, with Bernard a close. I would say Jackson 1, Bernard 1A. Then Joique Bell. Murray if he plays. And I got to put Trent Richardson 5th because, again, A, the matchup is very tough with Washington, 9th against the run, and B, he's in that timeshare now with Daniel Boom Herron. So very, very tough there. I have Richardson and Herron both on my roster, but I'm not starting either of them this week because of the tough matchup with Washington. So, plus I have better options above them. So, there's something on my lip. I'm raining so much my lip skin is falling off. I know it's not what you wanted to hear, but so that's how I rate that group. And then at this point, really getting into the desperate bunch here. Next 5, Shane Vereen, Ryan Matthews, Dan Herron, Darren Sproles, Jerick McKinnon. Out of that group, I actually would say I probably like McKinnon the most, actually, because, again, the Carolina defense, nothing special. They've been terrible all season long. 22nd against the run. I think Minnesota is going to win that game, actually, against Carolina. So I think that they need to take advantage of that and how bad the NFC South is. So I would say McKinnon is probably my top option out of that group. I would say Vereen is second. I'll put Herron at 3. And then I'll put maybe Matthews and Sproles below that. Because Matthews is, again, injury issues, tough matchup with the Ravens defense. Sproles, I don't think, gets enough work. He's more of a flex play in that Philly-Dallas matchup. So I'm not really sold on Matthews or Sproles this week. But I think McKinnon and Vereen are certainly serviceable plays. Maybe you throw in Herron as a flex. But Matthews and Sproles, I would say, are not playable options this week. After that, it gets really, really where you're scraping at the bottom of the barrel. Frank Gore, Steven Jackson, Jonathan Stewart, Chris Ivory, Andre Williams. Again, maybe you get it with using Williams as a flex against Jacksonville. Maybe he gets a touchdown, but other than that, I can't recommend any of that group. Frank Gore is completely falling apart, plus the tough matchup. Don't like Frank Gore. You're not going to use Steven Jackson against the Cardinals' third-ranked run defense. The Carolina backfield is a situation to ignore completely. And like I said, you're not starting anyone on the New York Jets And no, that's not a blooper. So yeah, after that, I can't really recommend anybody as a starting option. All right, moving on now to the wide receivers. Wideouts for this week. Hopefully I mostly agree with these. I'm tired of ranting and raving about players. That Matt Forte thing. Ugh. I don't know why that really got me riled up, but it did. I don't understand why he's rated that high. Top 5, again, no surprise in this top 5 list. Demaryius Thomas, Antonio Brown, Dez Bryant, Calvin Johnson, AJ Green. These 5 are going to have big weeks. They've had big weeks all year. With Julius Thomas' status still in doubt for Denver, Peyton Manning might not have much of a choice to throw to, either Demaryius Thomas or, Emmanuel Sanders to be placed with a concussion. So Thomas is a no-brainer. Antonio Brown is a no-brainer. He's clearly Ben Roethlisberger's top option. Dez Bryant's a no-brainer in that matchup. Calvin Johnson, we're going to see a lot of, I think, Stafford, Calvin Johnson, Golden Tate. We're going to see a lot of the Lions, passing skill players, so no-brainer. And AJ Green, great to see AJ Green back healthy again. He's going to destroy Tampa Bay secondary. So the top 5, I have no qualms with there. 6 through 10, Josh Gordon, Odell Beckham, T.Y. Hilton, Emmanuel Sanders, Jordy Nelson. No qualm with any of those either. Welcome back to Josh Gordon, by the way. I had him stashed on my roster for a couple of weeks while he was suspended with the league suspension. Had a great first game back. A lot of people were kind of skeptical, saying, the Browns were saying, oh, no, he's got to earn his way back into the fold. No. He's going to be slowly. Well, yeah, throw that, as the song once said, they took that little stat and threw it out the window. The window. They threw it out the window. Because Josh Gordon is back. He's clearly a strong wide receiver 1 the rest of the season. You can get him in your lineups. He's in my lineup this week. No-brainer for Josh Gordon. Again, I talked about Odell Beckham in the catch. You got to see he's a no-brainer against Jacksonville this week. Clearly must start. T.Y. Hilton, again, rock solid as they come. Now, his status last week was kind of in doubt because he arrived at the stadium a little bit late, but there was a reason for that. Birth of his baby daughter. Great story. And he promised her he'd catch a touchdown last week, and that happened. A 73-yard touchdown against the Jags, and had a touchdown moment where he held the ball in his arms. Great stuff. And then and also another thing you got to watch on YouTube. YouTube is post-game interview with CBS after the game. T.Y. Hilton, you've been great for my fantasy team all year as well, but also in the real world, much love and respect to you, man, because that was just a great show of emotion and showing what you're going through right now. So congratulations on your daughter, and keep on keeping on, man. Continued success, because that was awesome stuff right there. Emmanuel Sanders of Denver, again, I said, is a must-start as well. And Jordy Nelson, no qualms with any of 6 or 10 either. These guys are must-starts for your fantasy team this week as well. 11 through 15, Anquan Bolden, Mike Evans, Kelvin Benjamin, Randall Cobb, Brandon Marshall. No qualm with any really of those guys either, though probably that means you're probably going to see a lot of Richard Sherman on Anquan Bolden, or maybe even Michael Crabtree based on their history last year. By the way, another thing you got to YouTube. I know there's a lot of YouTube gems out here in the NFL this week. You've got to watch it, and hopefully it's on YouTube. The Richard Sherman news conference with the Doug Baldwin cardboard cutout with Baldwin crouched down behind it. There's talk out there that Sherman's going to get fined for that, or suspended or whatever. There's no precedent to that. They were having fun. They were joking. They're making some good points about the NFL stuff, but they were having a good time. It was all in fun. What's the NFL going to do on that? Nothing. They're going to do nothing. So, but you got to watch that too. It was hilarious. But I probably wouldn't have Bolden that high because of the tough matchup. I would probably say I would put Evans ahead of Bolden. I would probably even put, maybe not. I would say, I'd probably rate, here's how I'd rate this group. I'd put Evans, Cobb, Marshall, then Bolden, and then Kelvin Benjamin. Because, again, the matchup is tough with Minnesota. So, I'm not too high on him this week, like as usual. I think he's going to still start Kelvin Benjamin, but not going to have, I think, a big week as many people might think. So again, out of that group, I like Evans the most. Cobb and Marshall, I think, are no-brainers as usual. Then Bolden, and then Kelvin Benjamin. Next 5, 16 through 20. Jeremy Maclin, Brandon LaFell, Golden Tate, Roddy White, Jordan Matthews. To me, Jeremy Maclin and Jordan Matthews are as must-start no-brainers you can get. Again, they've been great options for Mark Sanchez in the Philly offense. Again, it's matchup with Dallas. I think I'd rate Maclin and Matthews actually together. I'd put Matthews ahead of LaFell, Tate, and White because, again, the Philly offense is just so strong. It's going to be a shootout game, high scoring. I love both those guys. They're both great options for you this week. And out of that next group, LaFell, Tate, and White, I would probably say, again, I think we're going to see a lot of the Lions offense, so I'd probably put Tate then next. I'll go Maclin, Matthews, Tate. Then I'll put White there. And again, don't get me wrong, the job that Brandon LaFell in New England that he's done has been a good job. Don't get me wrong. But it's still Brandon LaFell, and that's just what worries me a little bit. So I'll say Maclin, Matthews, Tate, White, and then LaFell. Next 5, Alshon Jeffrey, Mohamed Sanu, Jarvis Landry, Torrey Smith, Martavius Bryant. Jarvis Landry has emerged from Miami as a big name, a potential free agent acquisition these past few weeks. He's been clearly, he actually has been getting, either more targets or more looks or just as many as Mike Wallace in Miami. So, maybe he's a serviceable wide receiver, 2 or 3. If again, this is it's a tough matchup with the Jets' strong pass defense, 14th. But if you're hurting at wide receiver and need some help, I think maybe Jarvis Landry's a guy you could have gone after. And if you got him, maybe you could use him as a desperate wide receiver 2 or 3 this week, considering the matchup. But I think Jeffrey, definitely is still above him. Again, the Lions' pass D is not that great. I think you're going to see a lot of color in a lot of the receivers. So I still think Jeffrey's up there. Yes, I'll keep Sanu ahead of him. I think, though, Torrey Smith, could probably go ahead of Landry. I know San Diego's strong against the pass, but again, I think the fact that Baltimore's just done so well lately, I like Torrey Smith. I like Steve Smith. I like both the receivers, actually, this week for Baltimore. So I'll go Jeffrey, Sanu, Smith. Don't know if I put Bryant above Landry, though. That's a tough one. That's a really tough one. I'd say it's a coin flip. I would say between Jarvis Landry and Martavius Bryant for a wide receiver 3, it's a coin flip. If it were me, I'd go Bryant because I think he's proven himself more than Landry has, but that's just me. It's very, very close. But I'd go Jeffrey, Sanu, Smith, Bryant, Landry. But don't discredit Landry just because he's just now emerged. I think he's still a decent wide receiver 3 this week. Next 5, DeAndre Hopkins, Michael Floyd, Julio Jones, Mike Wallace, Steve Smith. Again, I mentioned how much I liked Steve Smith. I think, I think he could have Julio Jones is going to have a big week this week. I think out of that group, I'll put Julio Jones 1 because, again, Arizona's pass D is atrocious. The receiver's going to have a big day in that game. So I'll put Julio Jones 1. I'll put Michael Floyd 2, same game, because, even though he's been struggling of late, I think, again, the receiver's going to have a big day in that game. So I'll go Jones 1, Floyd 2. I'll put Hopkins 3. The matchup is tough. I'll put Steve Smith 4 and Mike Wallace 5. That's how I kind of rate that group if you need help at any of those positions. Then the next 5, Vincent Jackson, Charles Johnson, Julian Edelman, Kenny Stills, John Brown. Again, these are wide receiver 3s. But I would say, if it were me, Charles Johnson has emerged as a really strong weapon for Teddy Bridgewater in Minnesota. This is a guy we didn't even know about most of the season. He had Greg Jennings, and he had the tight end Rudolph, and that was pretty much it. But now Charles Johnson is emerging as actually a very, very strong threat. Excuse me, the Minnesota offense. So he's had good numbers last couple weeks. So I'll actually put Charles Johnson ahead of Vincent Jackson. Maybe you throw in Edelman there as well, because again, that New England gives me a shootout. I'll put him this way. Put him Johnson, Edelman, Jackson, and then between Brown and Stills, it's really a toss-up. I'll go Brown and then Stills, because again, the matchup I think favors more John Brown as a wide receiver 3 than Kenny Stills. So I'll put John Brown. Maybe he gets a touchdown as a wide receiver 3 or 4. So that's how I would rate that group. That group of guys, wide receiver 3 or 4s as well. But I think Johnson is certainly serviceable. Edelman definitely. Jackson, wide receiver 3 or 4, desperate. Brown, a 3 or 4 dependent. Same with Kenny Stills. Next group, Deshaun Jackson, Sammy Watkins, Justin Hunter, Andrew Hawkins, Keenan Allen. I'm not fond of Hunter. I'm not fond of Hawkins because, one, Tennessee's offense has been very hit or miss, even though Mettenberger's better. He doesn't have an elite wide receiver. 2, Hawkins could have been leapfrogged by Josh Gordon. So that leaves Jackson, Watkins, and Allen. I really hope Keenan Allen bounces back at some point. I really hope that he can find a way to turn around a little bit. The matchup is great. Baltimore is 29th against the pass, so the matchup screams bounce back week. So I'm going to be bold here. I'm going to put Keenan Allen top out of that group. I say he's actually a starting option. I'll say Keenan Allen is a starting option. I like him this week. I'll put Allen ahead of Deshaun Jackson. Then I'll put Watkins third because probably Joe Hayden's going to be on him. And then Hunter and Hawkins. That's what I like out of that group. Not really sold on Hunter or Hawkins this week. And then at this point, really digging deep into really deeper league finds at this point. Next 5, Reggie Wayne, James Jones, Marcus Colston, Greg Jennings, Ruben Randall. Out of that bunch, I probably like Wayne or Randall the most because, again, the matchups favor them. Wayne, I think, is going to bounce back after a tough week last week. Randall's going to get more looks now. He's getting more looks in the Giants' offense, but I don't like the other 3 because I think they're starting to fade back. They're getting less work in their offense. So out of that group, I'd say only Wayne or Randall are maybe serviceable as wide receiver 4s. After that, though, not recommended. Kenny Britt, Eric Decker, Robert Woods, Devontae Adams, Marquise Lee. These guys just don't get enough targets to be fantasy relevant. So after that, no one I can recommend. So now the rapid fire positions to close out. And these really are heavily matchup dependent, offense dependent, that kind of thing. Tight end. Now, the big question mark at tight end is whether or not Julius Thomas of Denver is going to play this week. There's a lot of debate surrounding that. Some outlets have said that it looks like he could play Sunday night. The ankle's not bothering him as much as it was. Others are saying he's going to be likely questionable and out again. So if you have a backup plan at tight end, if you're a Julius Thomas owner like myself, yours truly, us, my team, then, if you are in that position, have a backup plan in place still. I still have Jason Witten on my team, so, have a backup plan in place. But the top 3 are no surprise. Jimmy Graham, Rob Gronkowski, Greg Olsen. You're starting these guys on an every week basis. That's no surprise to me. Again, Delaney Walker of Tennessee is a surprising 4th, but Mettenberger does like throwing him the ball. The Houston pass defense isn't that great, 31st against the pass toward the bottom of the league. So maybe this is going to be a big day for Tennessee's tight ends. Maybe one wide receiver, maybe Hunter breaks out or something. But so maybe a low end tight end 1 or 2. But I'd have Witten above him because Witten had a touchdown last week. Again, the Dallas offense is strong. So I think any of those 5 are certainly serviceable. But I would have Witten above Delaney Walker by 1 spot. Kobe Fleener, Antonio Gates, Tim Wright, Travis Kelce, Larry Donnell. I think I certainly like all of those 5, though again, I'm a little concerned with Fleener because the matchup is tough. Washington is 8th against the pass. So a little concerned with Fleener. But I think Gates is a safe bet. I think Timothy Wright is certainly a safe bet as well. Maybe he gets a touchdown. Gronk and him kind of, hit, intermittent on touchdowns. But I would say Gates is the safest bet of that bunch. I'll rate Donnell second. I'll go Gates, Donnell, Fleener, Kelsey, and then Wright is how I'd rate that bunch. 11 through 15. Kyle Rudolph, Eric Ebron, Andrew Quarles, Mercedes Lewis, Brent Selleck. They didn't really get in desperate. Maybe use Kyle Rudolph considering the matchup. But after that, I really can't recommend using anybody. These guys don't get enough targets or enough looks. Maybe get it with using like a Heath Miller, but other than that, can't recommend any of these guys. Now, we do have a kicker story to share. I wish this thing was a little bit faster. There we go. Okay, we have a kicker story. If you guys haven't followed, maybe you do, maybe you don't, but we have a kicker story. Brandon McManus was cut by Denver last week. He was cut, waived, missed like a chippy field goal, so he was on a short leash apparently, so he got cut. Now they brought in Connor Barth, former Tampa Bay kicker, so he now is the main guy in Denver. So if you're looking for a quarterback, a playoff push, maybe you take a shot on Connor Barth. Certainly it's a risk because they haven't used him all year, but he's been out of the league for a while, but we'll see what happens there. So kickers I really, really like this week. The top kicker is Justin Tucker of Baltimore. I have no qualm with that. He's been one of the top options all year. Projected for 13 points against San Diego. Chandler Catanzaro of Arizona against Atlanta, projected for 12 points. Again, Atlanta's defense, nothing special. You're starting your Philly-Dallas kickers, Cody Parkey, Dan Bailey, Mason Crosby, Stephen Gostkowski in the Green Bay-New England game, yes. Stephen Hauschka projected for 11 points against San Francisco. I don't know about that. I think that's a little bit of a stretch. I think it's going to be a defensive-minded game. Vinatieri, yes, definitely a continued must-start option. Greg Zuerlein of the Rams projected for 11 against Oakland. I think that's certainly feasible as well. He's available in a lot of leagues. I think you can use him as a strong option this week as well. I think the Pittsburgh-New Orleans kickers, Sean Swisham, Shane Graham, I think you can use those guys as well. But other than that, maybe Caleb Sturgis in Miami against the Jets. He could be a serviceable option as well. Mike Nugent of Cincinnati against Tampa Bay. Matt Prater of Detroit against Chicago is certainly a serviceable option. Blair Walsh of Minnesota against Carolina. Randy Bullock of Houston against Tennessee, I think, could be picked up in a lot of leagues and used this week. Josh Brown of the Giants against Jacksonville. So other than that, that's really all I can recommend. And then finally, the DSTs. Ooh. Obviously, the top options, no surprise. Dolphins against the Jets, no-brainer. Rams against the Raiders, no-brainer. Lions against Chicago certainly is a great option. The Colts are number 4 listed against Washington. That's interesting, but again, maybe they've had the Colt McCoy starting and they've struggled of late, so they could certainly be a serviceable option. I think either the Seahawks or 49ers defense, yes, are serviceable options because again, I think it's going to be a low-scoring, ugly game. Baltimore is rated 6th against San Diego. I'm using them in my league this week. I know San Diego's offense has been, Phillip Rivers strong of late, but they've also struggled in some games. And the Ravens look great against New Orleans. So I think they're certainly very usable. Texans against Tennessee is definitely a serviceable play as well. Vikings against Carolina. I mentioned 49ers against Seattle. Cardinals against Atlanta. Almost froze there on me. Bengals against Tampa Bay. Yes.
Giants against Jacksonville, no brainer. And other than that, I don't think I can recommend any other options. Definitely not using the guys in the shootouts. All right. It's like Letterman. That's it. I missed, but I don't care now. That's it. That's it for the week. That is it for the Week 13 edition of the FFSR. Whoa, what's up with my elbow? Is that a red spot on my elbow? What is up with that? It's been a wild show. Good luck in Week 13. Go out there and get a win. Make your push for the playoffs or play sport with someone else. And we'll be back next week. Quieter week, hopefully. Week 14, or maybe not. Who knows? For your league, your team, your game, your home, the FFSR. Good luck and get a win, and God bless. And happy Thanksgiving from all of us here, from me to you. Take care, guys.